trauma doesn't just live in our memories, it lives in our bodies. When overwhelming experiences overwhelm the nervous system, the body doesn't always respond with the familiar fight or flight reflex. Sometimes it shuts down to freeze, appeases through fawning, or disconnects entirely, leaving a person feeling numb or absent. These are not weaknesses or character flaws. They are survival strategies deeply rooted in our biology, designed to protect us in moments when no other option feels possible. Understanding why we freeze, fawn, or feel nothing at all is the first step toward compassion, healing, and reclaiming control of our own stories. When most people think about how humans respond to danger, the phrase fight or flight comes to mind. This survival reflex is hardwired into our biology. When the brain detects a threat, the amygdala sounds the alarm. The adrenal glands release adrenaline and cortisol, and the body instantly prepares for action. Heart rate rises, muscles tense, breathing quickens. In that moment, your body is saying, do I stand my ground and fight, or do I run for my life? This response has been critical to human survival for thousands of years, protecting our ancestors from predators and physical threats. But while fight or flight is the most recognized reaction, it's only one part of a much bigger survival system. What often gets overlooked are the other trauma responses that are just as valid. Freeze, fawn, and collapse. Freeze. When neither fighting nor fleeing is possible, the body sometimes hits the brakes. Muscles lock, time feels like it slows down, and the person may go numb or feel paralyzed. Fawn. Particularly common in relational trauma, this response drives a person to appease the threat. Instead of running or fighting, they try to keep the peace by being agreeable, submissive, or overly compliant. Collapse or shut down. In extreme overwhelm, the body may simply shut down altogether, fainting, dissociating, or going emotionally blank as a last-ditch attempt at survival. These responses aren't weaknesses or character flaws. They are natural biological strategies that the nervous system uses to keep us alive in situations where other options aren't available. The most important thing to understand is this: we don't choose these responses consciously. The nervous system makes the call in fractions of a second, long before the rational brain even has a chance to weigh in. If your body senses fighting will be fatal, it may lock into freeze. If running is impossible, it may collapse to conserve energy. If the danger is coming from another person, especially someone you depend on, your body may fawn, attempting to minimize harm by being submissive. From an evolutionary perspective, each of these responses had its place in keeping humans alive. Today, however, when trauma imprints these reactions onto the nervous system, the body may default to them even when the threat is no longer present. This is where trauma survivors often struggle, feeling stuck in responses that once protected them but now interfere with daily life. The freeze response is often described as the body's brakes slamming on. Instead of moving into action like fight or flight, the system locks down. People in freeze may feel sudden immobility, like their body is stuck, numbness in their limbs or face, a sense of being paralyzed or unable to move or speak, mental fog or disconnection as if the mind has gone blank. From the outside, someone in freeze might appear calm or still, but internally their nervous system is overloaded, trying desperately to survive. The freeze response has deep evolutionary roots. In the animal kingdom, many species survive predators by playing dead. When flight is impossible and fighting will be fatal, immobility becomes the safest option. By shutting down movement, lowering heart rate, and numbing sensation, the body reduces the chance of further injury and sometimes convinces predators to lose interest. Humans inherited this same survival strategy. In modern life, it doesn't look like playing dead in the wild, but the body reacts the same way when a threat feels overwhelming. This is how it plays out in humans. In moments of trauma, humans may go into shock, unable to process what is happening, lose words, finding themselves unable to speak even when they want to, feel detached from their body like they are watching events from the outside, become physically rigid, unable to run, fight, or even call for help. This isn't a conscious choice, it's the nervous system taking control, deciding stillness is the safest bet when danger feels too great. This is the cost of freeze. While freeze may protect in the moment, the cost comes later. The survival energy mobilized during threat doesn't just vanish, it remains stuck in the body. Survivors may experience panic or terror when the body tries to release trapped survival energy. energy. Chronic numbness or disconnection from emotions. Dissociation, where the mind disconnects from the present as a coping mechanism. Difficulty making decisions or taking actions, even in safe situations, because the nervous system keeps defaulting to paralysis. In essence, the body remembers what the mind tries to forget. Unless that energy is discharged or integrated, freeze can become a long-term pattern shaping daily life. The fawn response is a survival strategy where, instead of fighting, fleeing, or freezing, the body responds to threat by appeasing it. This often looks like people pleasing, over-apologizing, or prioritizing someone else's comfort at the expense of your own. At its core, fawning is the nervous system's way of saying, if I make myself useful, agreeable, or invisible, maybe I'll be safe. This is why fawning develops, especially in childhood trauma. The fawn response is most common in relational trauma, especially in childhood, where survival depends on caregivers. If a parent or authority figure is volatile, abusive, or unpredictable, children quickly learn that pushing back or expressing needs only increases danger. Appeasement, on the other hand, reduces conflict. Over time, the nervous system wires itself to default to compliance. Fawning becomes the body's best bet at maintaining safety in unsafe environments. Even into adulthood, the nervous system may still interpret disagreement, anger, or rejection as life-threatening danger, triggering automatic people-pleasing behaviors. Here are some examples of fawning in daily life. The fawn response can show up in subtle ways. Saying yes when you truly want to say no. Over-apologizing for things that aren't your fault. Putting others' needs ahead of your own, even at your own detriment. Minimizing your feelings to keep the peace. Over-explaining yourself to avoid criticism. From the outside, these behaviors can look like kindness or selflessness. The key difference is motive. Kindness comes from choice, while fawning comes from fear. This is how fawning becomes a long-term survival strategy. Because fawning often worked to keep someone safe in the past, the nervous system keeps it on repeat. Over the years, it can become an ingrained relational pattern. In friendships and romantic relationships, fawning may lead to poor boundaries, codependency, or staying in harmful dynamics. In work environments, it might show up as chronic overcommitment, burnout, or difficulty speaking up. In family systems, the fawn response often turns children into peacemakers or emotional caretakers for adults. While this strategy once helped minimize harm, it can become maladaptive in safe environments, robbing people of authentic self-expression, boundaries, and healthy relationships. The collapse response is what happens when the nervous system becomes completely overwhelmed and decides that the safest way to survive is to shut down. It can look like extreme exhaustion, feeling drained of all energy, unable to get out of bed or even lift your head, fainting or near fainting, the body literally powering down, emotional disconnection, going blank, flat or numb, almost as if the lights have gone out, physical stillness, slumped posture, slowed breathing, and little to no movement. From the outside, it may look like someone is just tired or spaced out, but internally it's a survival state, the body trying to escape by shutting off awareness. Polyvagal theory helps explain collapse. According to this model, the vagus nerve controls much of our stress response. When fight, flight, and even freeze don't work, the nervous system activates dorsal vagal pathway. This triggers a shutdown response, lowered heart rate, slowed metabolism, and a sense of being disconnected from both body and environment. In nature, this is similar to an animal playing dead when caught by a predator. The body essentially says, if I can't escape, the next best option is to stop feeling. One of the most common features of collapse is dissociation. This is the brain's way of protecting itself when reality becomes unbearable. Survivors describe it as feeling like they are rewatching themselves from outside their body, experiencing gaps or memory loss, numbness, emptiness, or floating away. While dissociation helps in the moment by reducing the pain of trauma, it can become a long-term pattern, leaving people cut off from emotions, sensations, and even their own sense of self. The collapse response doesn't just affect the body, it also shapes how a person relates to themselves. Identity. Chronic shutdown can make it hard to know who you are or what you want, because your nervous system is used to erasing you to survive. Memory. Dissociation disrupts how memories are stored, leading to fragmented or missing pieces of personal history. Survivors may remember certain details vividly while others are blank. Self-connection. Living in collapse often means being disconnected from feelings, desires, and bodily cues. Survivors might not realize they are hungry, angry, or tired until it's extreme. because their awareness is turned off. Over time, this can create a cycle of alienation, not fully inhabiting your own body and not feeling truly present in your own life. At the center of the brain survival alarm is the amygdala, a small almond-shaped structure that constantly scans for danger. In trauma, the amygdala becomes hyperactive, like a smoke detector that goes off not just when there is fire, but also when someone burns toast. Even minor triggers, a tone of voice, a smell, a flash of memory, can set off a full-blown panic or hypervigilance. For survivors, the body may feel like it's always on alert, even in safe environments. The prefrontal cortex, the rational thinking part of the brain, normally helps regulate the amygdala. It says, "You're safe now, calm down." But during trauma and often long after, this connection weakens. In high stress moments, logic and reasoning can go offline. Survivors may know they are safe on a rational level, but their body doesn't get the message. The heart races, muscles tighten, and panic floods in as though the threat were happening again. Trauma disrupts the balance of the autonomic nervous system, which is supposed to move fluidly between states of alertness and rest. Instead, survivors often get stuck at the extremes: hyperarousal, fight or flight, anxiety, panic, irritability, racing thoughts, inability to sleep or relax. Hypoarousal, freeze or collapse, numbness, fatigue, disconnection, shutdown or dissociation. This dysregulation makes it hard to feel safe, present and in control. The body either slams on the gas or the brakes, but struggles to find the middle ground of calm regulation. Trauma literally rewires the brain survival circuitry. Over time, the nervous system learns to prioritize survival responses over rational processing. Because it believes danger is constant, even when the original threat is long gone, the body continues to default to old patterns of hypervigilance, avoidance, freezing, fawning or collapse. This is why survivors often say, "I know I'm safe, but I don't feel safe." Their nervous system is still living in the past. The good news is that through therapy, somatic practices, and safe relationships, the nervous system can slowly be retrained to recognize safety again and to respond with greater flexibility. When the nervous system has learned to freeze under stress, that same pattern can show up long after the trauma is over. Instead of a life-threatening danger, the threat might now be an overwhelming to-do list, a difficult conversation, or even an opportunity. Survivors may procrastinate endlessly, not because they are lazy, but because their body is still wired to lock up when pressure rises. Struggle with indecision, feeling paralyzed by choices, even simple ones. Experience chronic numbness, going through the motions of daily life without real engagement or energy. What once kept them safe by freezing in danger now keeps them stuck in cycles of avoidance. The fawn response often persists in relationships, shaping identity and self-worth. Survivors may have weak or non-existent boundaries, saying yes to everything out of fear of rejection. Slip into codependency, constantly prioritizing others' needs over their own. Find it difficult to assert themselves because the nervous system still interprets no as dangerous. In childhood or unsafe environments, fawning may have protected against conflict, but in adult life it can erode identity, invite exploitation, and prevent authentic connection. When collapse becomes a default survival strategy, the long-term effect often looks like persistent fatigue and low energy, no matter how much rest someone gets. Symptoms that overlap with depression, emptiness, hopelessness, withdrawal. A pattern of checking out from life, zoning out, dissociating, or detaching from responsibilities and relationships. What once was the body's way of escaping unbearable pain now shows up as disconnection from joy, motivation, and self-expression. It's important to remember, none of these responses mean someone is broken or failing. They are evidence of a nervous system that adapted brilliantly to survive. But when these adaptations remain switched on in everyday life, they stop protecting and start limiting. Procrastination, people-pleasing, and chronic exhaustion are not random flaws. They are echoes of survival strategies that no longer serve. Recognizing them is the first step toward healing, because what the body once used for survival can be gently rewired into healthier, more flexible patterns. The very first step toward change is simply recognizing your survival style. Whether you tend to freeze, fawn, or collapse, noticing the pattern without judgment gives you back some choice. Awareness shines a light on behaviors that once felt automatic and out of your control. Healing isn't about forcing yourself to stop reacting. It's about teaching your nervous system new ways to feel safe. This can be done through gentle body-based practices, breath work to signal calm and reset the stress cycle, grounding techniques like feeling your feet on the floor or naming objects around you, movement and somatic therapies such as yoga, tai chi, or somatic experiencing that help release stored tension, boundaries and voice work, learning to say no in safe settings and gradually building confidence. Over time, these small practices re-establish a sense of agency and remind the body that safety in the present is possible. The most important takeaway is this: these patterns are not permanent. Trauma may rewire the stress response system, but the brain and body are capable of remarkable neuroplasticity. With compassion, consistent practice, and often with the support of therapy or safe relationships, the nervous system can learn to respond differently. Where there was once only fear and shutdown, there can be balance, connection, and resilience.